We are fighting for our territories and we are not going to give up anything. We will not surrender them. For months now, the hottest direction remains Pokrovsk. And now the situation straight from the source. Boris, whose call sign is Nimetz, the commander of the combat crew of the separate drone systems unit Typhoon, is joining us now. Boris, I am extremely grateful to you because right now trust in the military is paramount. And that's why I can ask you, what is the situation in the Pokrovsk direction? From your perspective, and then we'll clarify further. I've gathered information from various brigades holding that sector. Thank you all immensely. Now let's hear from you.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you.
What is the situation near Pokrovsk right now?
Regarding the Pokrovsk direction, as you already mentioned, the situation is tense. This is confirmed by all the units that are here with us holding this sector. The enemy is constantly trying to probe for weak spots, attacking in waves, often several times a day, but we are holding our positions under our control. We are constantly maneuvering, reinforcing certain areas and not allowing the enemy to gain any success. In other words, the enemy advances, but just as regularly gets hit in the teeth and is pushed back to their original positions.
Also, in the Pokrovsk direction, Dobush's Hornets are holding the line. This is the 68th Separate Jaeger Brigade, the 25th Separate Airborne Brigade, the 82nd Separate Air Assault Brigade, the Bukovina Brigade. We can name them. And that's the consolidated information. So we know that the armed forces of Ukraine are operating on the front line, north of Pokrovsk, but clashes are also taking place south of the railway. Can you explain? So the main concentration is to the north, but clashes are also happening south of the railway. Why? Is it because our soldiers are trying to fight back? Well, as much as that's possible within the city itself, yes, I understand. I'll
try to explain it to you. In my own words, the enemy pushes in wherever he can get through. That is, it's not like he's only advancing on Pokrovsk, he's advancing everywhere. Wherever he manages to gain even a meter, he keeps pushing, which forces our soldiers, exhausted as they are, to retreat a little. And as a result, the angle of the front's expansion increases. Is that the right way to put it?
If Volodymyr Zelensky said that near Pokrovsk, Russia has amassed 150,000 troops. This is the 51st Combined Arms Army and their 2nd Combined Arms Army. The 51st is operating in the north. How professional are these troops at this point? Again, our military says that most situations are resolved by the personnel themselves, right? So it's clear that 150,000 is quite a huge number, isn't it? Yes.
150,000 is indeed a very large number, but in actual reality, the vast majority of their servicemen are largely untrained, newly mobilized individuals who have signed contracts simply and solely because they desperately needed the money to survive. There are separate special forces groups, but they operate deeper behind enemy lines or act as spotters. Recently, it has been noticed, and perhaps you have already heard repeatedly in reports about UAV units such as Rubicon. They also operate very effectively in this direction. So, if we are talking specifically about assault units, they are not effectively trained. They usually go in, die, and after a few minutes or hours, others come to replace them. Then we see videos of roads covered with the bodies of the enemy.
Now, please tell us regarding the Russians. Right now, in the Pokrovsk direction, they are actively using copied drone interceptors for aerial reconnaissance, which they have copied from our armed forces of Ukraine. You are the commander of the combat crew of the separate unmanned systems unit Typhoon. Typhoon is definitely not at the bottom of the rankings. In other words, you fight excellently and keep improving year after year, despite the relative youth of your unit. But please explain to me, they are copying and they are learning. And what can we copy and learn from them if we're talking specifically about drones?
In my own personal opinion, that is a truly interesting and thought-provoking question. We can certainly gain valuable insights and knowledge from their methods regarding how to efficiently and quickly build these complex drones. Quickly
turning an idea into reality?
Turning ideas into reality, yes. Implementing certain projects, absolutely, that's right, ma'am. Thank you very much for your help. In fact, we focus more on precision, the quality of the crew's training. In other words, our approach is different. Our units use fewer drones, but accomplish more tasks. That is, we aim for the effectiveness of these unmanned aerial systems to be, if not 100%, then at least 90% in terms of successful strikes. If we talk about the enemy, they already have a certain doctrine that prescribes the use of drones every 20 minutes or even every 10 minutes, and they use them indiscriminately just for the sake of numbers. In reality, it's not effective. But if we're talking about a situation where 100 to 200 drones fly over your head in a day while you send out fewer, it has a greater impact on morale and on logistics itself because logistics can't move up. So what we need to learn from them is more about construction, which we can't afford because we are smaller, we are smarter, and we don't use our funds, our resources in that way.
And please tell us, Boris. The Russians' goal is to capture Pokrovsk by the end of the year. What's the strategy? Why are they speeding up? Well, I'm pulling you a bit into politics here, but you see it with your own eyes, so why and for what purpose? So this kind of acceleration is happening at the end of the year. We can say that, in general, until midsummer, the situation around Pokrovsk was more or less stable. And then they started to really disrupt our logistics and began accelerating their actions toward Pokrovsk.
This, once again, is an extremely relevant question. And we get involved in politics because we are living in the present. It's a difficult time. And one thing I would say, the most important thing for our country, and I am proud that we are young, as you said, young units, young guys, and we are making the history of Ukraine. As for Russia saying they want to capture Pokrovsk, capture Donetsk region, capture Kharkiv region, capture Kherson region, they always set themselves some unattainable dreams, unattainable fantasies, in my opinion. Because they usually set very short deadlines for tasks they cannot accomplish. And after that, these meat grinder assaults happen when they send hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people just in one direction. If we talk about why the deadlines are so short, then in my opinion and the opinion of my comrades, it's probably connected to the fact that Europe is talking about us, America is talking about us. And indeed, everyone is constantly talking about the urgent necessity of ending this war. And if we clearly state that Ukraine has absolutely no desire to give anything up, and I personally also have no desire to relinquish my own land, then perhaps Russia genuinely wants to seize as much territory as possible in order to later lay a permanent claim to this entire territory. After all, as Putin once said, wherever the foot of a serviceman of the Russian Federation has stepped, that is Russia. But these are just thoughts, and I do not support this action by Russia. Therefore, I still hope that this war will end in our favor, and that Ukraine will develop, rebuild, and we will live as a European country as we should. I
wanted to make a joke about you, Boris, that you work at Typhoon so that even when that foot steps, the body would separate from that foot. Well, in the end, the foot won't be able to walk on its own. But, well, actually, I've already made the joke, allowed myself to do so. Thank you for answering my question so thoroughly. Boris, whose call sign is Nimetz, is the commander of the combat crew of the separate unmanned systems unit Typhoon. Boris, I am extremely grateful to you for your stance and for your service. To all the guys and girls from Typhoon, you are doing incredible things. Thank you for taking the time to come on air.